my name is Eldon from Elect IT Solutions, and today I'm here to talk to you about cybersecurity and what you can do to keep your computer and network safe. If you keep up with the news, you probably hear from time to time about high-profile companies that have customer data stolen by hackers. You might have even received letters from companies that you deal with to alert you that your personal information might have been accessed by an unauthorized person. But what you might not learn from the news is that cybersecurity isn't just a big business problem. For every one of those big businesses that gets broken into or hacked, there are probably hundreds or thousands of smaller businesses or individuals that suffer the same problems. Some of these attacks are automated and carried out by viruses or malicious software. Others are a result of your network specifically being targeted by a hacker or hacker group. Now, if I asked you what you need to do to stay safe, you might mention having a good antivirus and firewall software. And those serve an important role. But in many cases in the business world, that software is installed and updated by the IT department. So that means security is taken care of for you, correct? Well, not really. As it turns out, even the best antivirus and firewall software on the market won't protect you from all threats. Most of the successful cyber attacks we see employ some kind of social engineering, where a computer user is fooled into making a mistake. This mistake might be something like clicking on a link to a malicious website, or opening an attachment that creates a backdoor into your computer, or maybe even typing your username and password into a fake login screen, which then forwards those credentials to a hacker. So this security training is not about antivirus software or firewalls or routers or any other technical jargon. It's about what you can do as a computer user to keep your computer and network safe. And what you learn here will be helpful not only in the business world, but it will also help you keep your home computer safe as well. The first thing we're going to talk about today is password security. Now, you're probably groaning right now because everybody hates passwords. Unfortunately, if you're a computer user, passwords are a necessary evil, at least until somebody comes up with something better. But before I go through a list of do's and don'ts about passwords, how about we do a little password hacking ourselves, just to demonstrate the importance of choosing good passwords. Now, if you take a look at my screen, you see that there are a couple of documents here, and we'd like to see what information is contained in those documents. So let's double click on one, and we find out that the owner of the document has password protected it, and we don't know the password, and so we can't get into it. Now, if you password protect a Word or Excel document, it is encrypted. What that means is there's no workaround to getting into it. There's no backdoor. Your administrator cannot reset that password. The only way you're going to get access to that file is if you either know the password or can guess it. So how would a hacker gain access to that information? Well, he might use a tool such as the one that I have on my desktop here. These kind of tools are readily available on the internet for anybody who might want to do a little bit of hacking. So let's go ahead and give it a try. Let's choose that Word document, and this tool gives us two different ways to try to guess the password for this document. One's called a brute force attack, and what that means in English is simply that the program would guess all combinations of a password. The other option is dictionary attack, which is much quicker if the person happened to use a dictionary word when they password protected that document. So let's go ahead and do that one first, since it's pretty quick. Now, you have to have a dictionary file available to you, but fortunately they're very easy to find on the internet as well. And I've downloaded one simply called Dictionary. It's a text file that contains all the words in the dictionary. So now that I've added that, let's go ahead and click Start Attack, and immediately we find out that the password for that document is children. As it turns out, a computer can guess all the words in the dictionary in a matter of a second or two, and so we've learned what the password for this is, and we can get into it. And there you have it. A dictionary word is the weakest password that you can come up with. It's very easy to break under certain circumstances. Now, we have another document we'd like to get into as well, so let's try this again. Let's go to More Secret Info. We're going to do the dictionary attack again because maybe they used a dictionary word. So let's try that. And it is finished going through the dictionary, and it did not find the password. That's why we have the question marks up here. So in that case, we're going to have to go with a brute force attack. We're going to have to try to guess the password. So let's just assume that the password is probably at least 4 characters long and maybe up to 10 characters long. So let's just assume that this person used just small letters and numbers. So let's just take out capital letters for now. And let's go ahead and click Start Attack. And you can see that it's looking at all different combinations of passwords that are 4 characters long, and then it will step up to 5 characters long. And as it turns out, it only had to go this far because the password for this document is CH45. And so let's go ahead and minimize this and give that a try. And there you can see we broke into that document as well. What I'm trying to show here is the importance of using strong passwords. In many cases, a hacker will use a password guessing attack like we just did. And if your password is short, it doesn't take very long to learn what it is. If you make your password longer and more complex, it takes much, much longer to guess. You can take a look at this chart. This is just a general guideline. How quickly a hacker could guess the password depends on the speed of their processor and a number of other things. And you can see if your password is 9 characters long and you make sure you use the combination of upper and lowercase and numbers and special characters, it would take 44,000 years. And that's a whole lot better than about 20 seconds like it took with a 4-character password. Now there's something I should mention about this example. In the real world, if a hacker's trying to get into one of your accounts with an online service, say your bank account or some other account, maybe your Gmail account, he's not going to be able to enter thousands of passwords like I just did. After a few unsuccessful attempts, the service will probably delay him from signing in for a few minutes, or perhaps it will disable the account entirely and wait for you, the account owner, to take some kind of action to enable the account again. But you still should use strong passwords because you never know when these types of attacks might be possible. One example, a number of years ago, there were a number of celebrities that had some pictures stolen and published on the internet. And these pictures were taken from their iCloud accounts. And the hackers were able to get into their iCloud accounts using a brute force attack because these celebrities had chosen very simple passwords. Now again, normally with an online account, like an iCloud account, you wouldn't be able to do a brute force attack. But in that case, there was an issue with the Find My Phone feature. And anybody with an iCloud account and with the Find My Phone feature enabled, at least at that time, could be subject to a brute force attack. And because of that, a bunch of people got their iCloud accounts hacked because they chose very simple passwords. So regardless of what service you're using, it's important to use strong passwords. Here are a few do's and don'ts on password security. First of all, don't use a name or dictionary word. Now that doesn't mean that a name or dictionary word can't be part of your password, but make sure there are plenty of other characters yet besides. Use a mix of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. And I recommend that a password should be at least 10 characters long. Some people recommend even 12 or 15 characters. We showed in the previous slide that even a 9-character password, if it's complex, is very difficult to guess using brute force attack methods. However, keep in mind that computers continually get faster and the hacker could have available a whole network of computers to use to do a brute force attack. So when it comes to passwords, the longer it is, the harder it is to guess. Also, don't use the same password for multiple services. The reason for this is a lot of times when a company gets hacked, they don't know it for days or weeks or even months. So let's just say that company is an online service and you have an account with them. The database that gets stolen contains your username and password, and that hacker has weeks or months to use those credentials to try to break into other services that you might use. Also, keep written passwords in a safe place. Now, some people give the advice not to write passwords down, to choose passwords you can remember. But frankly, if you use a different password for every service and you make them complex enough, which you should, then you definitely are not going to be able to remember them all. So if you write them down, just keep them in a safe place, the same place you would any other document that contains important or private information. Another thing you can do is store them electronically. For example, you can make an Excel spreadsheet with all your usernames and passwords. But if you do that, I recommend encrypting that spreadsheet with a master password that's required to get in there to view the rest of the credentials. There are also password manager programs available. I use one called KeePass, and that's simply a database that contains all the usernames and passwords, and then there's a master password to protect the database from unauthorized use. Also, don't give other people your password. That sounds kind of basic, but sometimes you'll get a call from somebody who claims to be a new IT guy, and he wants your password to do an update on your computer. People also have received calls from someone who claims to be from Microsoft who wants their passwords. Just be aware that those scams exist and don't fall for them. Also, consider using two-factor authentication when it's available to you. Two-factor authentication is when you sign into a service and they email or text you a code, then you enter that code to finish the login process. It's a little bit of a hassle, but it does greatly enhance the security, and I definitely recommend it if you're using a service that contains a lot of very important information. The next thing we'd like to take a look at is device security. If you deal with sensitive information on your computer, make sure that you lock your computer screen when you leave your desk. And that's as simple as holding the Windows key and tapping the L key. When you come back, you'll need to sign in, but you'll be right back where you left off. I also suggest you set your computer to automatically lock after 5 or 10 minutes of inactivity. That way, if you get up and move away and you forget to lock it, it will lock automatically. Don't leave mobile devices unattended. If you're out and about with your laptop or your phone, keep those with you. If you need to leave the laptop in the car, make sure it's hidden so someone isn't tempted to break in and get it. Also, don't store sensitive information on mobile devices that are not encrypted. So here's a scenario. You have a laptop that has payroll information, maybe bank account info, or maybe even social security numbers, and that laptop is left someplace and is stolen. By law in most states, you would have to notify everybody whose information was on that laptop that their personal information might have been accessed by an unauthorized person. But if that mobile device that is stolen is encrypted by strong encryption with a strong password, then under most states' laws, you wouldn't have to make that disclosure because you would know that the person who stole the laptop has no means of getting the data that is stored on it. The other thing is to report lost or stolen devices immediately. If you've lost a device, report it immediately to the IT department. Sometimes there's a way that they can lock that device or wipe it remotely to avoid anybody getting their hands on sensitive information. Next, we're going to take a look at social engineering. Essentially, social engineering is a method used by the bad guys to convince a well-meaning person to make a mistake that compromises account security or even the security of the entire network. Here's a couple of tips to stay safe. First, don't assume your antivirus program will protect you. You need to exercise caution because there are many threats out there that your antivirus program won't catch. A lot of the virus infections and security breaches that we deal with are a result of a user being too trusting of a website or of an email that they received. Beware of free downloads from websites. In the past it was free screensavers or buddy icons for instant messenger programs. Nowadays it's usually free games. Maybe it's some kind of saving or coupon extension for your web browser. Stay away from those things, especially in a work environment. It's very hard to tell what freebies are okay and which ones are not. And lastly, don't get hooked by an email phishing attempt. And phishing is just when someone sends an email trying to get you to give them important information like account information or fool you into taking some other action that you shouldn't. If an email has an attachment or a link, stop and think it over. Clicking on either one of them can be enough to compromise your entire network. Just one person, one mistake is all it takes. Knowing who sent the email is not enough to ensure the email is safe. For one thing, the hacker could have spoofed that email address. He may be using it even though the email is not from that person at all. Or it could be that the email account of the person you know has actually been compromised and the hacker is using their account to send out scam emails. So if you're suspicious, just call the sender and ask for an explanation before proceeding. Keep in mind that simply emailing that person back to ask about the email you just received is not always safe. One time I received a somewhat suspicious email from somebody I knew. I emailed them back for an explanation and they gave one and they said it's safe to open. I meant to send this to you. But there was something about that email that they sent back that just didn't seem right to me, so I called them, and they had no knowledge of any of it. The hacker was actually in their email account and was actually responding to people that inquired about the emails he was sending out. If you get an email from a bank or other online service that contains a link, for example, maybe it says there's a problem with your account, it's safer just to close the email without using the link and then sign into your account with that organization to identify any possible issues with your account. Here are some signs that an email is a scam or a phishing attempt. The email plays on urgency or fear. For example, it says your account is overdue, or it has a problem, or a new coronavirus case has been identified in your area. We've seen a lot of scam emails that reference the coronavirus issue. Another bad sign is if the email asks for credentials or financial information, or instructs you to make a purchase or transfer money. If you get an email that has an attachment without an explanation of what that attachment is, don't open the attachment. If you know the sender, but the email is different from what you'd expect. So for example, if you get an email from somebody that supposedly has an invoice attached, but you normally don't get invoices by email from that person, don't open the attachment, just pick up your phone and call the sender and ask for an explanation. So now that I've shared some do's and don'ts, now I'm going to show you some examples of phishing attempts and other scam emails. And these are all examples that I've personally run into with people I work for. Here's one that says that your access to your online banking has been suspended. It pretends to be from PNC Bank and gives you a link to go to correct the problem. Again, in a case like this, don't click on the link. Just call your bank or go to the bank's website, log into your account, and see if there are any problems. Here's another one. This one claims that your mailbox is almost full and outdated, and you're supposed to click on this help desk link to get it resolved. This one here isn't really a very good fake. Most people would probably recognize it as a scam. But if you click the link, chances are it will try to get your email username and password from you, and that way they can use your email to launch other attacks. Here's one that claims to be from EasyPass and says that your account is overdue and that you need to click on the link to get the invoice. Again, there's no reason to click on the invoice. If you use EasyPass, go to the EasyPass website, sign in, and I'm sure it will alert you if there are any problems with your account. This is kind of an old email virus that circulated around. This would normally come from somebody you know, but just has one line in the email that says, check this out, and has a link there. And notice the subject line said, is this a picture of you? And so it plays on curiosity. You think that this person that sent it might have found a picture of you on the internet, and of course you're wondering what that is, and so many people click on the link. Unfortunately, clicking on the link takes you to a website that tries to use known vulnerabilities in your web browser to infect your computer. And then people you know will be getting a similar message from you. And here's one that several of my customers encountered. This one claims to be from UPS Quantum View. Now this one looks pretty authentic. If you buy from a large vendor such as Amazon or Walmart, you'll normally get a shipping notification from that company when your order ships. But if you buy from a smaller mom and pop type business on the internet, you might get a notification straight from UPS that your order has shipped. And it might say from UPS Quantum View. In fact, it will look very similar to this email, but there's something different about this shipping notification. Notice the text here. It says the shipping information, including the tracking number, can be found in the attached shipping label. Redelivery may be arranged by visiting the local post office mentioned in the attached label. So what's it trying to do? It's trying to get you to open the attachment, and normally a message like this would not have an attachment on it. So that's the red flag. So what if you make the mistake and open the attachment? Well, if you do that, there's really not much information in the attachment. It just comes up and says that there's an error or something like that. And most people say, well, it doesn't really matter. I'll get my order when it comes, and they move on. What they don't know is that that attachment used a known vulnerability in their PDF reader and has now infected their computer and has begun to encrypt all of their files. And a couple days later, they'll get a message like this, that your files have been encrypted. And they indeed have been encrypted. If you don't have a good backup of your files, the only way to get them back would be to meet the ransom demands of the hacker. The bad thing about ransomware is many times it encrypts not only your personal files, but all of the files on your network that it can access. So if you have a shared network drive that a number of employees use and you have access to that, that will be encrypted as well. There are even some cases where once a hacker is able to get into one machine, they'll find ways to spread to other machines and even the servers and try to encrypt not only all the servers, but all the backups as well. Here's another one that plays on urgency and tries to get you to click a link. Says your email account will expire in 48 hours and you need to click the link to reactivate your email account. Here's one that claims to be from PayPal and says that there's a problem with your account and you need to click the link to correct the issue. If you click on this link, it will take you to a website that looks exactly, pixel for pixel, exactly like the PayPal login screen. And so if you're not thinking about what you're doing, you would type your PayPal username and password into that screen. It will tell you that your account problem has been rectified and everything is good, but what you've just done is given your username and password to the hacker. Here is one that was what's called a spear phishing attack, and what that means is that the hacker, rather than an automated attack, the hacker actually gets on an organization's website, finds people's names and titles, and tries to figure out what their job function is, and then launches a targeted attack that tries to fool them into doing something they shouldn't do. So this one here was actually received by a customer of mine. I have changed the names and email addresses on them. So Angie received this email from the CEO, from her boss, asking for her to do a wire transfer. Now, interestingly enough, this email comes or appears to come from her boss's email and has her boss's name there. It addresses her by name. Okay, hello Angie. It has his name at the bottom. And as it turns out, Angie actually does do wire transfers for her CEO from time to time. And so when she received this email, she just assumed that it was okay. So she clicked the reply button. Hey Bill, I got your request. I need the bank name, the account name, the recipient name, and the amount, and I can go ahead and transfer that money over. Now, do you see anything different about the reply screen? Notice the email address. It doesn't match the email address that the original email came from. As it turns out, an email address can appear to be from one person and yet have a different reply to address. And if you don't notice that when you're typing your reply, you're actually replying not to the email you thought the email came from, but somebody else's email. And so Angie actually was replying back to the hacker. Now there's a happy ending to this story. For some reason, the hacker did not receive Angie's reply. If he had, he could have responded back with the relevant information and Angie would have followed through because she was entirely fooled by this. Thankfully, the hacker for some reason did not receive her reply and sent another message saying, I really need you to get this wire transfer completed by the end of the day. And Angie was frustrated at that point because she had responded, and so she picked up the phone, called her boss, and he said, "What are you talking about?" He had nothing to do with any of it. His account had not been hacked. The hacker had simply used his name and email address and other information that he was able to get right off the company's website. My suggestion to protect against an attack like this is simply don't make any purchase or transfer any money based on an email request. It is too easy for someone to make a very authentic looking email. If you get an email like this, pick up the phone, call the relevant person, and get confirmation. This last example doesn't have to do with email, but with web browsing. One of my customers did a search for Facebook. Their company had a Facebook page that he wanted to put some updates on. And it came up with 2 results for Facebook. Which one do you think he should click on? Well, if you said the second one, you're correct. If you click on that, it will indeed take you to Facebook. Unfortunately, he clicked on the first one, and it looks authentic enough. It says facebook.com. Underneath it says www.facebook.com. Connect with friends and family around the world. However, you see that little icon there that says ad, and that means that is a paid advertisement. In other words, somebody purchased this ad spot from Google. Now, I've actually purchased ads from Google in the past, and it's done on an auction basis. And I tell Google what I want to appear in the ad. So all 3 of those lines I can specify. I can specify the URL that appears. So I can put www.facebook.com. However, when the user clicks on that ad, I don't have to send them to the address that appears. I can send them to an entirely different address. Okay, you could go to www.hackercentral.com. And it's deceiving because the ad clearly says www.facebook.com, but that isn't where it actually takes you. In this particular instance, it took that person to a different website, and they got this. A fake message saying that they needed to make a phone call. Okay, please contact Microsoft technicians. Technicians is misspelled. That should be a clue. Near the bottom there it says, please contact Microsoft technicians at toll-free, and then it has a number. If you call that number, you'll get a friendly person who claims to be from Microsoft. They'll want to install remote software on your computer so they can sign in and fix this problem for you. What they really will do is plant a virus and try to extort some money from you to clean up the mess they created. So that's it for this security training. Hopefully you found it helpful. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.